Do you like what you hear? Then you need a Devon bass. Devon bass. Better by design. Whether you're old school or whether you're new school, we discuss it all for the only one that matters. Well, today's episode for The Only One That Matters is a special one for me. I get to catch up with a former student of mine. I've known Taylor Chastain for, I think, over 15 years. And I've had him as a guitar student from before in his young teenage, maybe 12 or 13. He's now grown. He has a wife and a child, another child on the way. And he's got his own business. He's been a worship leader in churches. He has a good story to tell that probably relates to most all of us who are Christian musicians. So let's join our interview in progress. Me and my former student, Taylor Chastain. So how have you been, my trash carrying friend?
Man, I've been great. No complaints.
Oh, you could complain. I'd even pretend to listen and care.
Well, there you go. That's the other thing about complaining.
So what's been going on with you lately, my friend?
Man, just juggling business and juggling family. And then what's funny, when you actually brought this up, I've started, now I'm the MD for our church. So I've started adding that to the list as well. So it's like—
You never did learn the lesson.
I never did learn the lesson. So
you walked away from it, and here you are. They suck you back in.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, have you ever watched any of the John Wick movies?
I've watched one or two of them.
Yeah, it's like he retires. He gets out of it after the first one, but you never really retire.
Mm-hmm.
They suck you back in. It's like The Godfather.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
So it's like the Christian mafia sucked you back in.
And the Christian mafia is a great way to describe sometimes what happens in the church.
Don't worry. I'll make them a deal they can't refuse.
Exactly.
So tell me about your new gig. What are you doing?
You mean as far as what I'm doing at the church?
Music director, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just
Or I'm sorry, was MD, does that stand for Mad Dog?
Yeah, no, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Oh, you're the bouncer. Got it.
Yeah, I just stand on the stage like this.
Yeah, and if they get too crazy in the mosh pit, you escort them out.
Yeah, if I start seeing too many flags being, run around the room or something, I'd shut it
down. What's going on? What church? First of all, what church are you going to?
I'm at Vintage 242. It's a church up in Ackworth, right at the crossroads, like 92 and Due West area.
Mm-hmm. The 4 Due West roads?
No, it's up farther. It's near Alatoona High School.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah. So we've been there for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years next month.
So what led you? I know that you were in the ministry for a while. You were like interned, I think, right? Was it at this church or another one?
So it was a different church. I interned for 2 years, and then I came on as a staff member for 3 more years. I was the middle school director, and then at one point I was the elementary director. Then I spent most of my time as the outreach director, doing community service and events. And I was doing like outreach in middle school at the same time. And then my last time there was as the interim student director over all the students.
So now, what led you away from that? Was it just because you have a family and it wasn't doing the deed as far as income goes?
Well, so there's the way I always like to tell the stories. There were push factors and there were pull factors.
Okay.
And so, I mean, one of them was money, but money wasn't a huge deal because while I was working 30 hours a week at the church, I was still working 20 to 30 hours a week hauling junk. And so, I could make ends meet on 20 hours of junk hauling because let me tell you, there's a lot more money in junk than there is in Jesus.
Yeah.
So I could make
that's true. You stop and think about it. Everybody has junk, but only a few folks got Jesus.
There you go. right?
See, it's basic math.
Yeah, it's basic math. Yeah, this is not high level math. So,
Well, all joking aside, it was like years ago when I got saved. I think I shared the story with you. When I got saved, God told me I have a ministry for you, and I was thinking it was going to be church work, worship pastor, maybe a pastor, that kind of thing. And I pursued that for years, and God finally had to get through my thick skull that my definition of ministry was this big. His definition of ministry was this big. And he finally, to make a very long story very short, he said, I've given you a ministry. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a friend. And then he basically went on to explain to me, of course, it's not like he was like showed up. That'd be kind of spooky. But
right.
he really spoke into my heart that he says, how you make money. I mean, unless it's like drug running or whatever, bootlegging. But he says, but how you make money is irrelevant. You don't have to make money from the church. He says, you have to take care of your wife. You have to take care of your children. So you're a husband, you're a father, you're a friend. Fulfill your ministry. And it took a huge load off my back because all of a sudden I realized, the job I was in wasn't of the devil. It wasn't, the only holy job isn't the church. The holy job is whichever job you're working at the moment. If you're a bricklayer, be a godly bricklayer. If you're an engineer, so that took a huge load off my back, and it took the pressure off me to run into the church because God told me that, you're looking for a door with a brass nameplate. The answer to that is no. I have a ministry for you. And right about the time I met you, when you became one of my students, God, it's been so long ago.
It was a long time ago.
I know. I was talking to my wife, and I said, God, I just wonder what God's got for me in ministry. And she said, I'm so tired of this discussion. And she said, what are your spiritual gifts? I said, teaching, administration, and prophecy. Those are the guys that always show up when I take the test. I said, okay, fine. How many of the students are you teaching Christians? I went, I think all of them. She said, teaching. Ding. Yeah, she said, and you're booking lessons, you're taking money in, you're scheduling, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah. She says, sounds an awful lot like administration, but ding. And then she said, are you speaking God's mind into the lives of your students whenever you get a chance? I said, yeah, anytime I get a chance. She said, it's prophecy. She said, sweetheart, I don't know how to tell you this. You've been in the ministry for 15 years and you didn't even know it? Yeah. Men. And then she just said, men, right, and walked off. So and the truth is, I'm in the ministry, but it doesn't look anything like I thought it would. And I kind of get the same thing happening with you. I saw the same thing happening with you. I mean, it's obvious God's working in your life. And I would have never picked you for the junk hauling work.
It's because you knew me in the deep V-neck, long hair phase. Now I'm the kind of man I keep all my pocket knives in a toolbox in my office. So
now you're in the short hair redneck phase.
Basically.
But isn't it cool? Isn't it interesting how God orchestrates events and changes your life? To me, and I watched your junk hauling business grow from like a pickup truck to like now you got multiple trucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last time you called us for a junk pickup, I wasn't on the truck. I think you met Kevin and Josh. I think I sent them to you.
Yep.
And so I'll answer your question about the church and moving into full-time junk hauling. I'll tie all the pieces together what we just talked about in the last 5 minutes. And a lot of it actually comes back to an experience that I'm sure you've had sitting there teaching students. I had a student walk in for a lesson one day back. I was probably 18 and she was like a middle schooler. And so she came in, we started the lesson, and immediately you could tell she had no interest in playing the guitar today. And sometimes you're just like, oh geez. I could tell she was crying. So pretty quickly, I was just like, dude, what's going on with you? Like, what is going on? And we ended up talking for about 20, 25 minutes of the 30-minute lesson about her day. She had some middle school boyfriend that was breaking her heart. But she was really feeling bad about herself, about who she is and all this stuff. And so I just had the conversation with her about, this is how the Lord sees you. And I really encourage you, here's some passages. This is who you are. take this and let's focus on that. And this boyfriend, he's probably an idiot. So let's just set that to the side. And I called the mom as soon as she left, or as soon as they got home or whatever. I said, hey, this is what we went over in the lesson. We didn't really play guitar. I am happy to give you your money back because I didn't actually teach her guitar today. And she said, no, that was exactly what Olivia needed. Keep the money. I'm not worried about that. Thanks for being a good influence in her life. And that was this little story that encapsulates a lot of what you're talking about. So fast forward a couple years later, I'm working at the church. I'm 30 hours a week doing this, 20 hours a week, doing my junk hauling business. There had been some turnover in the church that maybe wasn't handled super well, staff wise. And so there was already some tension brewing there. And then as soon as COVID hit, two things happened simultaneously. One, the senior pastor, he made it sound like this was an elder decision. Come to find out later, it was just him. But he decided that he wanted an entirely full-time staff. And so he said, you can go from 30 hours a week to 45 hours a week and be full-time, but we won't allow you to do any other work. So you need to quit junk hauling. I was like, I can't quit junk hauling. I'm trying to buy an engagement ring, or at that point, I was already engaged. I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to start a family. Like, that's not going to work, He said my other option was to go down to 10 hours a week. I could be a community outreach intern. I was like, that is also not going to work. That's dumb. And so as that's happening, that's the push factor. And then COVID happens. And I realized, church shut down. And I realized I prayed with more people on their driveways than I did in church for like 3 months. And so then this scenario with my student comes back to me, and I have that same realization you're just talking about of, some of my spiritual gifts are like leadership. And then normally it comes through as like the apostle, which I'm not all holy and apostolic. I just like doing new entrepreneurial things for the kingdom. Right. And I like doing them because they're fun, and encouragement. And I was like, oh, I don't have to be in a church to do that. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. And
it's interesting. This whole last year, when the COVID thing hit and I had my heart thing, pretty much stayed home for a year and a half. I mean, I was locked into my house for a year and a half. And so I started doing this Facebook Live Bible devotional thing every week, or every day, 5 days a week. And I went through the entire New Testament in the first year. And I'd read a chapter and then chat about it. I think my tagline is join me as I think with my mouth open. I just kind of muse and just discuss whatever we're talking. Anyway, I get the whole New Testament. And I remember sitting back after I finished Revelation going, I understand the New Testament now. And it's all contained in this one phrase. Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? He says, oh, that's easy. Love the Lord your God, thou art your heart, soul, and mind. And the second one is just like it. Love your neighbors yourself. Upon these hang all the laws and the prophets. In other words, if you make that your focus, everything else falls into place. And loving your neighbor, who's my neighbor? Whoever's around you that has a need, right? So ministry, the majority of ministry should be outside the four walls of the church. And once I discovered that, it freed me up. I felt gone was the guilt about having to go to church more. Gone was the guilt with having to do all these churchy things. I still do churchy things, but the majority of ministry happens outside. And that's what I see happening in you. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that was my focus as I decided, okay, I'm really going to build this as a company, not just, hey, I'm a junk hauler and I have a truck. Like what does it look like to build an actual system that propagates these values? So our 4 values for our company, they spell hero because branding, right? But it's hard work, encouragement, reliability, and open-handedness. Open-handedness being a service orientation, right? And so, you tell me, when the guys came to your house to help you out, was that an uplifting moment of your day?
Oh, dude! All right, this was the coolest part. All right. The tall guy, not the ex-Navy guy. The ex-Navy guy is
Kevin,
or is he Marine?
Navy,
yeah. Well, he and I locked in right away.
Yeah.
I said, dude, I got to get out of here. He said, why? I said, you and I are going to swap old sailor stories, and you'll never get any work done. He started laughing. But the other guy that was with him, the younger guy, I said, hey, let me go in the back of the garage and get that stuff. He said, no. I said, what? He said, you're paying us money to move your stuff. Point to it. I'll get it.
Yeah.
You just tell us sailor stories. and they were the most congenial, and they what should have been a pretty somehow they made it fun.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty basic, boring thing if you just take it at face value. It's just junk.
It's just junk. But these guys, yeah, they were amazing.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. We my guys will tell you I drill this all the time. Say we are not in the junk hauling business. We are in the helping people business. We just happen to move 20,000 pounds of garbage a week. Okay, it's we're in the business of helping people. We want to be the guys that you want back to your house. I mean, think about the Xfinity guy who comes into your house. I mean, you don't want to see that guy again. He's a ding dong, And
But I
and
want to see you guys again. And before I forget, I will see you guys again because I got a lot of crap around here that needs to go.
great.
So I know who to go to.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that's what we're doing is we're helping people.
Oh, I said,
And
now how did you get to the music director gig?
okay, great. So that's great. So for when I quit working at the church, we kind of spent some time just looking around for churches. Honestly, I was pretty burnt out on church with everything and the way it happened. I was really trying to fight the cynicism. I didn't want to be cynical, ex church staff guy, but it takes a little processing to get there. And so we got to Vintage, and I kind of told the pastor a little bit, and we had started going there. We really liked his preaching mostly. That was the big thing. And kind of told him what happened and that I'd been super involved. He said, dude, just come be at church for a while. And they didn't ask anything of me. I didn't even play for a while. I probably didn't play for 4 to 6 months. I mean, I told them that I played, but I didn't really do anything. I didn't play bass.
For the record, that's one of the things when I go to a church, I'm a professional musician, you know that. If I go to a church and if they find out I'm a professional musician and don't ask me to play, I'll probably stay there
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're not after you for something you bring. They just want you.
Yeah. And
That's
that was the
awesome.
conversation. And if he was like, look, if you want to play, play. If you don't want to play, take a break. If you want to play, we'd love to have you. If you don't want to play, we'd love to have you. No big deal, And I thought that was awesome. So for a little while, I didn't play, didn't worry about it. It was nice waking up every Sunday morning and not immediately leaving my wife, at 6:30. I'd get up, make breakfast, hang out, go to church. It was great. I mean, and it had been literally 5 years since I had not had to be up early for church.
Right.
And so did that for a while. I started playing because, I don't think I'd hurt anybody's feelings by saying we at the time and still maybe today don't have the best band in the whole wide world. We have good and we have a lot of good players. We're just working on the cohesion and the consistency.
Right.
But so for a while I was just playing. I was like, this is something I can do to serve, and I do like playing, so like let's play. And then we had a baby, so I was only playing twice a month. Otherwise I need to be at home to help with the baby. That's about as much as Kelly wanted to do on her own, understandably. But then once Dakota got into an easy rhythm where she was, we knew what time she was get up. She sleeps great through the night and all that stuff, which we're so thankful for, because that is not everybody's story.
How old is your baby now?
10 months.
Wow.
Yeah, 10 months. So once she got in her rhythm, I told Kelly, I was sitting there at church, and I told her, I said, I think we've got a window here where I can really help the band and help the church by helping the band. I said, because once we have another baby, I'm going to have to step back. Mama can't get 2 babies to church by herself every week. That's not going to work. But in our tentative plans, we're probably thinking, when we had this conversation, we're like, we'll probably have another baby in about a year or so. And I said, a year is enough time to train up some leaders, to train up some other MDs, to put some systems in place to really make a difference. And so that's basically when I approached them. The pastor is Stephen Randall. Steve's the husband, Randall's the wife, which it took me a second to understand that Randall was a woman, but I got it. They had both asked me to come on staff as an MD, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing the staff thing again. but when I called them, I said, hey, I'd be happy to MD as a volunteer. I don't want to be the worship leader. I can't sing. I don't have any propensity for that, but I can put a band together. That's what I can do. And so I've been doing that only for a couple of months now. But it's good. It's a lot more work, but I really enjoy it. I love. Um, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you've been playing at Burr for a long time, and they run a tight ship there. But I don't know if you've ever experienced the people, especially Christian musicians, can sometimes get into this thing where, as long as we're singing and glorifying God, that's good enough. And I reject that. I think it is good enough. I think making a joyful noise in general, it is good enough as far as the Lord knows our hearts, and that's a great thing. But the Lord also calls us to be good at what we do.
Well, if he says, when you sing, make a joyful noise, that's the joyful noise part. But the players, you're supposed to play skillfully.
Exactly.
You got to bring some game.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things is, nobody ever talks about the fruit of the spirit that is self-discipline. We all talk about love, joy, peace, patience. Oh man, my heart's so warm and fuzzy. Nobody ever talks about self-discipline. Okay.
That's of the devil.
Right. But it's not. It's not. To play skillfully requires discipline. To play skillfully as a group requires a disciplined group with a leader, with somebody holding us to standards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't play with a click track until 2 months ago. It's like, I mean, that's pretty well standard in a lot of church bands at this point.
Yes.
And the reason is makes the band really tight. Yes. If you wanted a super tight band 15 years ago, you had to have, 5 or 6 really great A+ players. Now it's like you can take B+ players, and with a click track, they sound great.
Yeah. It's funny. When I was at Westridge, Steve Veal was gone for a couple weeks, and they asked me to fill in and rehearse the worship band. And I went to see the pastor after the first week and said, "You got to find somebody else to finish up next week." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well," he said, and then he went on to say, "I think I know why. I heard about the rehearsal." And I discovered that when it comes to students, I have the patience of Job. I can take a lot of crap from students, and it just water off a duck's back.
Mm-hmm.
But whiny adults throw me around the bend. They just do. Yeah. And I put the music out. I'd put the music out to everybody with plenty of time, and I'd ask them. I told them, it says, band rehearsal is not the place to learn the music. Come with the music learned. Rehearsal is where we play it together and learn to play together. That's where you lock it up. Mm-hmm. Well, hardly anybody had practiced or even looked at the music. It was the first time rehearsal, and so I kind of laid into them. And I went and talked to another pastor who looked at all my spiritual gift scores and everything. He says, "Oh, I can tell you why you're never going to be a worship pastor." I said, "Why?" He said, the spiritual gift of mercy? He said, "Yeah, you're at 2%. I won't say you're merciless, but
you're close.
I think Adolf Hitler had more mercy than you've got." That's what he told me. I went, "Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well, that explains that."
Yeah.
So I totally get it. And, and when you're talking about the band, I had one of my students ask me what was the hardest gig I've ever had? So that's, hands down, church.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Why?" "It's just pop tunes, just pop music, and it's simple chords." I said, "It's not about the music."
Yeah.
There's a rotating list of players. You're never with the same group of players. I'm never with the same drummer. I'm never with the same guitar player. You don't have a chance to become cohesive. You've got a 45-minute rehearsal on Wednesday, maybe, or a couple-hour rehearsal on Wednesday, maybe 45 minutes on Sunday morning to lock it in. And that's the most difficult thing on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But so how's your band coming there? You doing well?
That's good. It's good. It's the interesting dynamic is I don't get to pick the songs. So we have a volunteer worship leader, and he picks all the songs. And right now, which I'm working on, but right now the songs aren't due until the Wednesday before the Sunday, which is not a long time. And so I'm just, I have the same problem you have when it comes to adults of like, hey, it's 8:05, practice started at 8. Like, I don't care if you have to poop. It's time to start playing. You know what I mean? You should have figured that out ahead of time. And so I struggle with that because like right now we run clicks and pads, no multi tracks or none of that, but just an ambient pad with a click track. But like some weeks I don't get the songs till Friday, so I'm literally Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. on the laptop trying to put everything together. Because most of the time, if it comes in at Friday night, I'm not going to see it Saturday. I'm working.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's.
So do you rehearse the band?
Yeah.
So you rehearse it. They get the songs. The worship leader gets the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you rehearse the band on what, Wednesdays?
No, so we rehearse. We just do Sunday mornings and then we play, which is another
Oh,
thing,
that's a high wire act there, baby, without no safety net.
dude. And it's Christmas season. We're doing Christmas tunes with day off, and so which is tough. And the good thing is there are several really great players, and I wouldn't say nobody on the team is like, oh, dude, you shouldn't be playing. There's none of that. I mean, there's some guys that are A+, there's some guys that are B+, but everybody's like passable for sure.
Right.
But it's just, hey, the sometimes like I'll show you this. So I run rehearsal off of my iPad.
Right.
If you look right here, what does that look like? Those are wrong way. Those are new chords because these chords on the chord chart aren't right. But since I didn't get them until Friday, I didn't know that they weren't right. So I didn't have a chance to change them in Planning Center. So now we're doing a chord change setup morning of. Like, dude, we only have an hour, and now we got to change the chords in the bridge. And we got one guy playing capoed, and he doesn't know how to transpose. And it's like, dude.
All right, now you might get a kick out of this. At Burnt Hickory, we got Kerry Amos as our worship pastor.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had a band rehearsal in 2 years.
What do you mean?
I know. He said he says, and this is his philosophy, and it blew me away. But then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, this is genius. He says, they still come on Wednesday night, but we don't rehearse. I teach. Wednesday night is I teach them the skills they need. So he's teaching them chord charts. He's teaching them how to transpose. He's teaching them the number system. He's teaching them all the things they need to do. He says, now it's up to them. They've got all the stuff they need on Planning Center to learn the songs, recordings, charts, blah, 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 blah. They got all that stuff. Their job is to show up Sunday morning, self-rehearsed enough so that when we put all the final product together Sunday morning, it's smooth, and it is. It's smooth like butter. But he said, I'm taking the time with the musicians to train them. So I don't rehearse them on Wednesday night. We teach what they need, the tools that they need. And so every musician that's there, they understand transposition. They understand numbers. They understand all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it to me, when he first said he did that, I was going, oh, Kerry, I'm not sure, buddy. That's going to, no, we need to rehearse. He says, no, they don't need to rehearse. They need to practice.
Yeah.
And it's working. It's stinking working. We don't rehearse at all on Wednesday nights. I show up Sunday morning now, and I don't have to go to the Wednesday night rehearsal because, dude, I got like multiple degrees in this nonsense.
Yeah. If the song goes from G to A, it's not going to take you 20 minutes to figure it out.
Oh, sometimes I will make a song hard on myself on purpose if I'm playing guitar. I'll capo 4th fret and play an F.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? Oh, the song's in A. Why don't you use regular A chords?
Yeah.
I just want to give a shot with F and see what that sounds like.
The song's in C, but I'm going to tune down to an E flat tuning. Whatever. I'm going to be sitting there playing in D the whole time.
It's in C, so I'm going to capo 5 and play in G.
Yeah, whatever.
So and I make my but it's but that might be just something to put in your hat for maybe if not you, the next music director, because we need to train our people. It's not just enough to learn a song. It would be cool if within a year, if your goal was within a year, that all of the players on your team could transpose. All your players understood numbers, et cetera, all that kind of stuff.
So, and I've had this conversation with the leadership, and like I said, I'm only 2 months into this. So, I mean, you can't turn the whole ship overnight. But I've had a similar conversation because we don't do a weekday practice right now. And they say, well, we have a hard time getting volunteers as it is. I said, the reason you're having a hard time getting volunteers is because they don't think they're good enough and there's no time for them to get any better. I said, and so why
Hmm.
would I? If I was somebody who I can play G, C, D, and E minor, I've got a good sense of tempo, but I don't really get transposing. I can feel the difference between 6/8 and 4/4, but I couldn't count it for you. It's like those people. Those people are 4 to 8 good weeks away from being ready to play. If they're just playing acoustic guitar, they can at least be passable. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But we have no structure because they have to jump in both feet Sunday morning. And if they suck, the pressure's on. And after 2 or 3 weeks of that, they quit. And I say, so the problem is actually not that if we did a rehearsal, people would be less likely to volunteer. The problem is we don't have any time for them to learn those skills. And so they don't volunteer because they don't think they're good enough.
Mm.
As people
Interesting.
want to be led, people want to grow and improve and be brought up to a higher level. Did I ever tell you about the time I got rejected from a band to play electric guitar, a church band?
Really?
Oh yeah,
You're one of my favorite. You're one of my favorite electric players. What did?
I'll show you why. This is what I did. I had you remember this guitar?
I do. I
Oh
do.
yeah.
That was what used to be my guitar.
Yes, and you named it Angel. Do you remember why?
Uh-uh.
It was beautiful, but it could be a stripper.
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to show you something.
Okay, show me. Yeah, that cracked me up that you named it that, so I kept it named that.
This is going to blow you away. I had a student in Timothy ministry years ago that was one of my favorite students. Now she's married, she got several children. She's an artist,
Oh, sick!
and I brought that guitar to Timothy. She took a snapshot of it, and she gave me a really long letter on the inside. But that she painted my guitar for me. Our guitar.
Yeah, this guy.
I'm so stoked that you still got that.
Oh, I love this. This guitar is my one hope that eventually one day I'll be back into jazz music on a consistent basis.
Ted Nugent used something like that, and he didn't play a lick of jazz.
Well, hey, I play a lot of church music on it. Anyway, so here's my story. I went to do the audition, and I don't have a strap on, but this is how I did the whole audition: pedal, 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 and I was looking at my pedal board the whole time. And the worship leader, he said, "You sounded great. You played all the parts how you should have. Your tone was spot on. Your pedals are spot on. The problem is you can't lead worship if you have to look at your pedals the whole time. So if you can audition without looking at your guitar and without looking at your pedals, then you're in." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I played everything perfectly and I'm not in." Really? That hit me right in the pride. But he was totally right. He was totally right. Because as long as I'm obsessed with what I'm doing and I'm not comfortable enough to do it on autopilot, then how am I supposed to lead the congregation in worship? Because I'm too busy playing music and not worshiping myself.
Yes, that's wisdom.
One of the best bands I've ever been a part of. You know why? Because he made me get better.
Yep.
And then he wanted to do a version of Go Tell It on the Mountain that was just electric guitar and drum machine. And it was funky. I'll shoot you over the video if I can find it. But it was hard. And he said, "I need you to play it." He said, "I'll give you a month to learn it." And it was not an easy song. It was chords with licks done in there. And there was a lot of right hand rhythm stuff that you had to do. And, but it was great. It made me a way better electric guitar player because he pushed me and he gave me enough tools to learn, but he left me enough gap to feel like it was me that was growing. And man, I loved playing in that band. And that's what I'm trying to get the team now to understand is we can take plenty of musicians who are C plus, B plus musicians, and they want a Thursday night rehearsal. They would love 2 hours a week where they get quote unquote free lessons from somebody who's maybe just one little step ahead. And that's going to bring more volunteers and it's going to raise the quality of our band. So
let me run something past you because I just had an idea. Now it could be just gas. Sometimes I mistake for was that a good idea or was it just gas? It's been my experience in the past that if you put like you take and say we're going to have an ongoing training thing, we're going to meet Wednesday nights or Thursday nights or whatever for the next 6 months to bring up your game. Uh, People won't. That's kind of intimidating. But
Yeah.
what if you were to bring in someone from the outside and say, we're going to have a 3 weeks. I want 3 weeks of your time. And at the end of these 3 weeks, you are going to understand how to transpose, how to do numbers, and you're going to understand everything you need to know as musicians. And gosh, do you know anybody that's got a master's degree in music?
Yeah.
Do we know somebody who is probably the biggest music theory nerd in your life? I don't know. Anyway, give him a call and ask him if he'd come to help. I'm pretty sure he would like to.
Yeah.
So what if we scheduled an event? Just make it, or it could be a 3-day weekend in the summer, a camp,
Yeah.
quote unquote camp, where we just do music for 3 days and we cover all this stuff. If you give it to them in a short little chunk, and you schedule several short little chunks throughout the year,
Right.
we could have a guitar thing. We could have a rhythm section, guitar, bass, drum, piano thing. We could have, gosh, just we could probably come up with several events that it would be special enough, and they know it's not a long-term commitment, and this is going to help them in their performance.
Right. Well, I think that would be fun and beneficial. I think the only gap in that plan is um, opening the door to onboarding new people, because that kind of assumes a fixed team. You know what I mean? But if we're saying, hey, we're getting 3 new people in a quarter, then we've got all these different levels we're having to keep people up on.
Right.
Which is it's still doable. It just requires more scheduling. And I think
well, if we didn't focus on the playing so much, then just on the head game, the numbers, transposition, understanding how to read a chord chart, the stuff that goes on up here.
Mm-hmm.
I know this appears like this is just a shameless plug, so I can come over and be with my buddy Taylor, but I would not be opposed to something like that. That would be fun.
I would love to do that. I think I'd have a blast too, doing that, and I think it would help the band. And I still think the value of a weekday rehearsal though is in that ability to spot check.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I think it's a both ands kind of solution.
So, all right. Did you ever watch the movie Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
All right, where he's really infatuated with the girl. Jim Carrey's character is infatuated with the girl, and she said that if you were the last man on, I wouldn't date you unless you were the last man on earth or whatever. And he said, so there's a chance?
Yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
So that's me and you in this conversation.
Yeah.
So you mean there's a chance?
Yeah. Exactly. I know. I would love to do it. I just, I think at least getting them to do some weekday rehearsals and stuff like that now is going to be the quick solution, And because the other thing too, we've got one keyboard player who's crazy good. I mean, jazz background, he's just nuts. But he's going to be leaving us in February, and so now I'm like, dude, like we've got one guy who did drumline at Jacksonville State. He's a drummer, so he's a crazy good drummer, which he can help with all the rhythm stuff impeccably well, probably better than I can. But as far as all the chording and all that stuff, as soon as we lose my jazz buddy, like I'm it. So as far as music theory, enjoyment, and explanation times. So, which I love because I geek out on music theory. For me, for some people, the way they learn about, if they're learning about science, they're seeing the way the Lord has built the world, and it just makes them so excited for God. I mean, I feel that way about music theory.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, are you telling me that, that this is how these notes and sounds work together to resonate? And oh man,
All right, I do this exercise for so many of my students. Hang on one second. See, Siri, what is 12 to the 12th power?
The answer is approximately 8.9161 times 10 to the 12th power.
Okay, that's 1,000, 100,000, million. Approximately 8.9 trillion, 12. There's 12 notes in the chromatic scale, 12 notes in the Western music system. That's how many possible note combinations there are out of those 12 notes, approximately 8.9 trillion notes. For all intents and purposes, infinity.
Mm-hmm.
God has given us unlimited power as musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why Taylor Swift can take the same 4 chords and knock out 5 or 6 platinum albums. And every album sounds different and every album sounds great. And she makes all the, she's an amazing, it's what God has put within our grasp is stunning in its immensity. And I believe it's the closest thing to eternity that we will touch here on this planet Earth. You and I, as musicians, we get to toy and play and roll around in that play box.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, it's what God has given us with music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Well, and that doesn't even include rhythm.
Oh yeah, I'm just talking about pitch. That's just you're exactly right.
And those are only Western notes.
Yeah, we're not talking about those like the Indian scales and stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, you have a fretless bass. I mean, you know that there's lots of stuff in between there that's interesting and cool.
I had a friend tell me once, he said there's 12 ways to play every note on a fretless bass. 11 of them are wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it is. I was just talking to Kelly about this yesterday, my wife, and I was saying, I think music is hardwired into the human heart in such a special way that just to say, well, I can show up and play the chords and we'll put a band together or something is such a disservice to something beautiful that God has given us. If we're just treating it half-heartedly, I get, and maybe this is my lack of mercy, but I almost get angry about it. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I share that. Yeah. Well, there was a missionary, Eric Liddell. Anyway, he was a Scottish missionary in the early 20th century, and he and his sister were going to go be missionaries in China. But he was selected to be on the track and field team. He was a middle distance runner for Great Britain for the Olympics. And he was an avid runner, and his sister could not understand his obsession with running. In fact, she even asked him once, why are you so obsessed with this running? And his answer was so perfect because it leads right to what you were talking about, where he says, I'm sure I'm going to get his accent all wrong. He says, God made me to run fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing what God made him to do. He was being what God made him to be. And to do anything less than your best is a crime.
Mm-hmm.
God's called you to be a musician. He's called me to be a musician. And honestly, I asked a player one of my other interviews, why do you do what you do? He says, because I just can't do anything else. Mm-hmm. This is what I am. And I can't imagine a day without music in my life. In some respect, I'm either teaching a lesson, I'm playing at church, I'm recording a session, I'm composing music, talking to other musicians. I mean, every day is a music day for me. And it's a calling. And somebody asked me once, how do you define a calling? I said, oh, it's easy. Can you imagine yourself doing anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Well, then you're not being called. It's a hobby. And that's not a sin.
Yeah.
It's not a sin.
You can have hobbies.
But if it's, for years, I got out of the music business because it wasn't fair to make my wife and kids starve. Well, I chased a dream.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. Because I see that now. I look back then, I think, oh my gosh, we would have starved.
Yeah.
But my responsibility was to take care of my wife and my children. So I was in the Navy. I was an engineer outside of the Navy. And then when the kids were gone and raised and out on their own, it kind of allowed us to flex a little bit, and I was able to get back into music. And now I'm full-time vocational music, and now I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
And but it's a calling, because music was always there. I never walked away from it. I couldn't. If I were to wake up tomorrow and find out that I couldn't play anymore, and I couldn't sing, I couldn't compose, I couldn't write.
Yeah.
That would be pure devastation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like I think it was Eric Clapton. He got the vaccine and then wasn't able to use his arm. Which this is not a comment about the vaccine, but he just said, "Well, I would have rather had COVID than not been able to play the guitar. I mean, I don't want COVID, but if I have to choose, I'd rather have COVID than not play the guitar. Are you kidding me?" And I mean,
Wow.
fair enough, dude. I mean, me too.
But can you
Honestly,
imagine your life without an element of music in it?
no. And what's funny is I mean, now obviously I spend so much time on the business, and whatever time I don't spend, I'm trying to just hang out with the kiddo and hang out with my wife. So I don't play very much, and I don't listen to a ton of music, which you might be surprised by. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of books, a lot of like stuff like that, because there is the significant portion of the calling of my life right now is to grow and build this business and to help as many people as we can. You know, we're going to have helped 1,200 people this year defeat junk in their lives. And by being a positive, encouraging person that's going to show up, do what we say we're going to do, and take great care of them. That's a really great thing. And so I spend a lot of my time focused on that. And I feel the Lord's pleasure when we do that. When I'm working in my part of the team and my guys and Lizzie, my office lady, when she's doing and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and the machine is working, I feel like the Lord is smiling on me, which is interesting because it means music has taken a little bit of a back seat to what it used to be.
Now, I have a question for you then. Do you ever feel a little guilty that music is in the back seat?
Yes. I it breaks my heart to go to concerts.
You know what? All right, then let me old man to young man. Music has always been a big part of my life, and I just knew I was going to have a career in music. And from 1980 to 2001, there was next to no music in my life. 21 years. 21 years. I was either electronics technician in the Navy or I was an engineer traveling around. If anything, I'd pick up a guitar and play just some cowboy chords. But music wasn't, I laid it down. I got burned out by the Navy music program I was in. And so bass and guitar were just pretty much non-existent. And, but when it came time, when the season was right, God opened the doors to music for me in a full-time, amazing way. And now I'm really living my dream. And I look back and I used to say, I regret not playing music during those years because look at how much I lost, how much experience I lost, how much I could have learned. But then my son pulled me aside. He said, Dad, you didn't lose anything. You gained experience in life. And he says, he said, you laid down music so that Joy and I could go to school, go to college. You laid down music so that Mom, you, and us could have a house to live in. He said, you did what God told you to do. You lost nothing. And the crazy thing about that is when I picked up a guitar, and especially bass, not guitar so much, when I picked up bass, it was like, you would think after 20 some odd years, you'd lose chops and things. I picked up bass after 21 years and it's like I hadn't missed a step.
Wow.
I picked up my bass. Now guitar, another story. I was never much of a guitar player. But so I've actually taught myself guitar since 2002 to now. I've been a guitar player. And what was so stinking amazing to me, what it finally occurred to me was that in God's timing, there's nothing lost. So if God's having you put your music on the back burner for a time, know this: music's in your heart. Music will find a way out. Jurassic Park. Do you remember Jurassic Park? All right. The guy, Jeff Goldblum, his horror at the fact that they were messing with the genome of the dinosaur. And he says, oh, but we removed the DNA, whatever, so they can't reproduce. He says, oh no.
Life finds a way.
Nature finds a way.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And it's like when you're walking in obedience to God, and your trash business is front and center, music's on the back burner. When you're walking in obedience to God, music finds a way. Yeah. And what's going to happen is maybe 20 years down the road. How old are you right now?
25.
All right. some 20 years down the road, maybe you build your business to the point where it becomes self-supporting and you can back off from it and devote more time to other things. 20 years from now, your kids will almost be grown and gone, maybe to college.
Mm-hmm.
20 years from now, your daughter could be getting married.
Oh, I know.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the shotgun?
But the point is that when God brings it back in, and he will, because he's made you a player.
Mm-hmm.
When God brings it back into the center of your life, dude, it'll be like you never missed a step. I swear. And you're going to hit 20 years, 20, 30 years from now, when that happens to you, or whenever God does it for you, you remember this old fat white guy told you that it's going to be perfect. And you're going to and at that moment, you're going to see God's wisdom in everything he did, because your responsibility is not to be a musician.
Yeah.
It's to love your wife, love your children, love your friends.
Yeah. Then that's
to me, it's like, somebody asked me, he says, why did God make you a musician? And my answer used to be so that I could serve him in church and play in front of people and bless their lives. What a crappy, self-centered answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know why God put music into your life and mine? Because he loves us.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we play music, we feel his pleasure. Music is first and foremost my quick connect to God's throne.
Mm-hmm.
And whether I ever play a note in front of anybody at church or anywhere else, I could really, I couldn't care less.
Yep.
Now, if I do it, it's fine, whatever. But the fact is, God made you a player. He made me a player because he loves us. Period.
Yeah.
And once you realize that, then when he says, I don't want you playing for 20 years, Taylor, and you're going to go, okay.
Yeah.
Let's build a trash business.
Yeah.
And when it comes time to walk away from the music director thing, when you've done all you're going to do there won't be any regrets, because God is totally in control.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing, because I don't want to turn this into a monologue, but one of the things I learned this last year is that there's a name for God called El Roi, E-L-R-O-I. And it means the God who sees. He sees it. There's a culture, South American culture, I think, where when they're telling somebody they love them, they're saying, I see you. Not physically see you. I can look in your eyes. I see your heart. I see your soul. I see you. And that's their way of saying, I love you. Mm-hmm. God sees you. And there's nothing outside of his control in your life. Everything in your life is exactly the way it's supposed to be right now. So, whether you take that hooker guitar of yours and glorify Jesus with it.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'd forgotten I told you that.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, I was old enough when he sold it to me. It was fine. I was at least 18. It's all good.
Oh, my gosh. And it's going to go out in the podcast. Oh,
yeah.
Alrighty then. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, I think you're totally spot on. And I had because when I was studying with you, I was prepping to go into the jazz program at Kennesaw State.
Right.
That was my goal. Right. We're working on Bloody Valentine, Take the A Train. We're working on all that kind of stuff. We're working on chord-based soloing, all of it. And but I didn't study jazz. I ended up studying psychology. And I studied psychology because God.
Psychos need help too.
Yeah, right. But he gave me the
study of psychos.
Right. He gave me the realization, though, that as much as I love music for music's sake, which I do, music's a blast. But one of the great things I love about music is the way it connects you to people. And so he said, I felt that calling. I didn't hear it, but I felt that feeling from him of, music. You love music so much because of how it connects you to people. Go help people. And so for me, psychology was the next logical step at the time. And then I realized, there's still it was psychology and ministry. And now from our conversation earlier, I've realized even that picture is way bigger than I thought it was. But go help people. And so if that means I don't touch my guitar for another 20 years and I go help people, then that's okay. I'm still winning on the scorecard God gave me. So that's fine. That's fine with me. And I have noticed a difference, like especially now doing junk removal. I spend a lot of, even though right now I'm only on about 10% of jobs as far as physically in the truck doing the work. But I
Mhm.
mean, I spend a lot of time heavy lifting, gripping stuff. My grip strength is stupid now because you just have to. That's what it requires physically. And so guess what? I've lost a lot of that little dexterity it
Dexterity. Yeah.
takes. So my guitar playing has suffered, but it's actually gotten a lot better? My bass playing. Because I can sit there and play forever. My right hand will wear out sometimes sitting there doing this forever, but my left hand is good, man. It doesn't bother me one bit.
You can crush walnuts with that thing now.
Exactly. But I love it, and so it's been really fun to actually, because I mean, you and I never even really played a lot of bass together or anything like that. But now I spend almost all my time focusing on playing the bass, the role of the bass in the band, and trying to, which it's hard. You can only do so much in church music, but really trying to highlight chords and transitional chords and walking things in the right direction and all of that. I love that stuff, and so I've really been enjoying experimenting in my bass playing because the way I have to use my body, I can't physically do all those teeny tiny little fast little things that required. I'm not going to be playing Cliffs of Dover or Guthrie Govan anytime soon. I mean, it just doesn't work that way anymore.
It's fun. I worked with a guy by the name of Cliff Davies. He was Ted Nugent's drummer for a long time.
Okay.
And he was retired, had a little studio in Hiram, and I was his go-to bass player. But he one of the pearls of wisdom he gave me was, he says, when you're in a band, don't think like a bass player. Don't, or whatever it is you play, guitar, saxophone, whatever. Don't think like a bass player, Paige. Think like you're a record producer.
Mm-hmm.
And a record producer is going, what can the bass do to make the drummer's job easier? What can I do as a bassist to make sure that singer is comfortable so that she can really just not have to think and she could just feel the groove and go with the song? He says, if everybody in the band thinks like a producer, don't think about the chords and, okay, I got this lick coming up in bar A. All right, ready, go. Which is what most of my licks come off sounding like. I ain't gonna lie, I'm not a guitar player. But but he says, don't you think about yourself as a record producer, think about the big picture, what you can do. And he says, what you're going to find yourself doing is you're going to play simpler, and you're going to play, as a bass player, groove oriented stuff. And he said, you'll get a lot more callbacks. At that time, I was doing some session work, but that is really important in the Christian music world.
Yeah.
Because the music isn't hard, really. I mean, come on, it's pop music, really. But what is hard is groove.
Yeah.
Now, are you playing bass in your church? Is that what you do?
Yeah. So I'm MDing while I'm playing bass. So I play bass, I run the computer, and I have the talkback mic, and I have my iPad. So so it's fun because
you need like 8 limbs.
I know. I'm sitting there playing bass, hitting the computer, and then talking over my shoulder into the mic. I sat down Sunday, and my best friend goes to our church. He said, "Were you singing or were you talking to the band?" I said, "I was talking to the band." I said, "Yeah, we weren't supposed to sing that chorus, and so I was trying to get us back onto the track of the song." And he was like, "Oh, okay. I was wondering. You were like screaming into that microphone." I was like, "Yeah, no." Yeah, bridge 2, 3, come on, So, but yeah, so I'm playing bass. So it's been a lot of fun, and it forces me to think as the musical director, and not just the bass player.
Right.
And so I feel like when I'm at my best, I've got my chart full of notes, dynamic notes mostly. Some of them are rhythmic, certain hits and stuff. And then the other thing, when I'm really at my best, is I'll sit down and I'll play the song on bass just to get my head around it. I mean, most of the time you're probably the same way with Christian music. As long as you know what key it's in, you can sit there and just hear all the chords. And it's like, okay, whatever. But when I'm really at my best, I'll sit down and I'll play the melody of the whole song on the bass. And I'll play it down, in first, second position, and I'll play it up near the 10, 12th fret. And I'll just play the whole song that way, because then all my licks are always spot on. If I'm comfortable with the melodies of the song, and really the vocal melodies, the electric guitar, piano melodies, and any obvious harmonies, if I've got all those under my fingers, then my licks always are just right where they need to be. They're not too much. They're not too forced. And then I
Yeah.
feel like it's really coming into its proper seat in the band, more than just I want to play fast and loud, you know?
Well, it's funny, not funny as in peculiar. I had a similar discussion with someone the other day, and in fact, Nico Lembo, drummer, he asked me, he says, "What's the most important part of a song?" I said, "Oh, the melody."
Mhm.
Because that's the part that people identify with. He says, right. So everything needs to be done to support the melody. So I tell all my guitar students and bass students, even bass students, play what you sing what you play. Learn the melody, learn to play the melody of the song. No, I don't care if you're a bass player. Play the
I'm going to
melody of that
interrupt you.
song. Huh?
I'm going to interrupt you because I had this exact conversation with Kelly literally 2 days ago. We're sitting in the car and The Great I Am comes on. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Did y'all play this growing up?" I said, "Oh, yeah, we definitely did. D, A, E." And I just started naming the chords. She said, "How do you know that?" I said, "I had my old guitar teacher, Mr. Garwood. He used to make me sing while I played. And now my ear is spot on." And I
It's
said,
magic.
"Yeah, it's magic."
There's something, the voice is the connection between your brain and your hands.
Yeah.
And like, if I'm doing like a scale thing, da 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 da. If I'm doing a guitar solo, Boston's more the feeling. Ba da 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 dun 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 da 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 da. And so I'm even playing it here.
Yeah.
And what happens is like, first of all, it's kind of cool to play and sing at the same time. But then what's going to end up happening is exactly what you just demonstrated. It's like you're going to hear a song and go, oh, 1,
Yeah.
6, ooh, 4. Oh, now that's cool. 7.
Yeah. You're right.
And they're going, what?
That 5 was minor. What the heck? You know?
I know.
My
Students think I'm a graduate of Hogwarts because
Yeah.
I must be a wizard, because they'll say, "I want to learn this song." I said, "Well, let's hear it." And I put it up on the iPad, play it, and I'm going, "Okay." I get out a piece of paper and pencil. They get it out.
Yeah.
I said, "All right." I hit the beginning. All right. I'm just going to pick a key. C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor. Ooh, B minor. Wasn't expecting that.
I'll do that.
But the trick is your voice to your ears.
Yeah, I do that. I've got my little tuner app, but it has a tone generator. And so I'll put a song on and I'll just go, "Oh, song's an S." And then I just start saying the chords and people are like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's because I did that so long."
Yeah.
I got it. And I remember actually, we did John Mayer songs together.
You might have been able to play some of John Mayer's stuff. I never did. He's amazing.
Oh, he is. I've seen him 3 times now, and I think I've cried at every concert. But you know that song, "I Don't Need No Doctor"?
Yes.
And so I still can't play his guitar solo very well, but the saxophone and trumpet solos, because I used to just sit there in the car and just sing the whole album, all the solos, everything. And the first time I actually decided, okay, I'm going to really learn this song more than just the one lick, I sat down and I realized I hit those saxophone and trumpet solos within about probably 70%, just because I'd been sitting there singing them so long and I knew what my scale sounded like on the guitar. I had it pretty close. If there were big jumps, then I might miss it. But, if he was staying around the same, if his melody was relatively well connected, I had it because I'd been singing it for so long. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it's not anything that's a particular skill of mine. It's just, it's connected because of what you made me do.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's magic.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's fun. I can't. It's so cool to talk with somebody who actually listened to me.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of things I still need to probably practice more that you were trying to.
Hey, dude, I got to run. This has been pure gold for me. Catching up with you like this. And I can't wait. Now, this episode will probably go up sometime in February, I think. I got to edit it, but this is going to be a first. I interviewed a trash collector.
Yeah, exactly.
For a Christian music podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great. Hey, who says the garbage man can't make a joyful noise every once in a while?
Roger that. Dude, it's good catching up with you again, man. We're just going to have to make sure that's not a couple years before the next time.
Hey, sounds great. I think we should get together and jam at some point.
At some point, maybe in the summer, we can pull something like that off. That'd be awesome.
I'd love to. It'd be a blast.
All right, wild man. Take care of
All right.
yourself. Hug your wife, your child, and try not to pinch the heads off of you musicians at church.
I will do my best. Good to talk to you, Mr. G.
All right, be good, buddy. Bye.
See ya.
Well, that was a wonderful conversation with my good friend Taylor Chastain. He's a former student, and I've watched him grow up from a very, I think, pre-teen teenager to grow up to be a professional musician, and now he has his own company. He's got a junk hauling company of all things. How cool is that? It's been really neat watching him growing up. It's been neat watching him make the choices he's made in life. He's married, he has a child, and now there's another child on the way. I couldn't be more prouder of him. Thank you for listening. I'll see you at the next episode for The Only One That Matters.